Well, I guess it's 7 o'clock. Everybody ready?
Fire away.
Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law and the governor's March 15, 2020 order imposed strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place, we are doing a virtual meeting. Welcome to the Chelmsford Planning Board meeting for February 24th, 2021. This meeting is being televised by Chelmsford Telemedia and being conducted remotely. All right, one quick thing for people that may be lining up. 248 Princeton Street has been continued to March 10th, 2021. Just to let everybody know that we won't be taking testimony on that tonight. All right, Evan, town meeting articles.
Yeah, so I would ask the board if they want to table this till later in the meeting. I don't see a lot of town meeting reps here at this point.
I would have no problem tabling it to the end of the meeting. Virginia, you all right with that?
I'm here as Virginia. I do have a question on one of them. I just have a 9 o'clock commitment, so I'm happy to stay on, but I have to leave at 9.
Well, I don't see any reason why we just can't take her question now and then table the rest of it afterwards. If that's all right with you, Virginia?
It is.
Go for it. You got the floor.
I had a question on the marijuana article.
Yep.
There is a statement at the beginning of the paragraph that reads marijuana establishment. It says means a marijuana, oh, I'm sorry, I'm at Virginia Crocker Timmons, 28 Levitt Lane. It says that it means a marijuana cultivator, parentheses, indoor or outdoor. And during the hearing last week, I heard the discussion about the indoor facilities and the security associated with that, but it's not clear to me what an outdoor cultivation facility is. And I was wondering if the board might be able to clarify that and what kind of security measures apply to that.
All I know, what I've heard, and we're going to take some more testimony on it, is it has to be fenced in, it has to be cambered, it has to be, it's not a mild fence either. It's like, I believe they're requesting a 10-foot high fence for it, the state regulations. There are state regs that regulate that. I don't believe we have the clarification in writing for you tonight, but I will make sure you get it.
Okay. And I know there was a question from the Vinyl Square Committee about one other, but I don't know, Mike, are you going to handle that later?
If you want to address it now, I'm just still going through my notes, make sure I capture that. Which one was it again?
So it was with respect to the article before that on the fulfillment centers. And when the Vinyl Square Committee met before your last meeting, they had voted that they wanted to recommend unanimously that the use tables for both articles, the e-commerce and the marijuana, be the same for both CD and Center Village. And I noticed when we signed the warrant that the fulfillment center accessory use is different for those two districts. It has no for Center Village, and in the CD district, it has special permit by the planning board. And I don't know if it was just missed in the last meeting, but that was another one where I think there was some question about why those aren't the same.
I believe we did talk about that in last meeting. Evan, you were going to look into it, if I remember correctly.
I know it was mentioned at the last meeting. it has not been changed because the board has not taken any definitive position or action. The action that the board did take at the last meeting was to revise marijuana. You eliminated several zoning districts in which those uses would be permitted. You did not make any revisions to e-commerce use table. And I believe Mr. Walsh's comments to the board were specific to the marijuana article.
So what does the Center Village want? What does the Final Square want from us? They want the same zoning as,
Yeah, and I thought that they were coming tonight, so maybe they'll join later, but at the meeting that they had the evening before your last public hearing for both articles, they voted unanimously that they wanted the use tables for CD and CB to be the same.
all right. I don't think that'll be a problem. I'll take a vote on it tonight before we finish.
Okay, thank you.
Question.
Go ahead, Nancy.
Should we look in the future at rezoning Vinyl Square to Center Village zoning? I mean, is that what we're really hearing? Because I'm concerned that the zoning that it currently has is shared with some other areas. And by adopting Center Village applicability,
I think there's a lot that would go on with that as far as, I think that's something for a future discussion, not for right now, but I think we could take and certainly bring it up in the future discussions, but I just think that's a lot for people to think about and digest before we take and do that. That needs to have hearings and have people put input in before they do that.
If I may, I believe Evan brought up with the committee at one of their meetings about whether they would eventually want their own like overlay. And it was talked about very briefly, but I think there was also discussion about whether you could really just take Center Village that was developed uniquely for Center Village and put it onto Vinyl Square. But I know that's a big project. You'd have to go through and look at it.
Yeah, you'd have to go
but
through.
I think, yeah, I mean, there was this very short discussion about it.
yeah.
And I'm sorry, I did have one other question on the marijuana article. I remember when the retail marijuana was up on the table, that was taken to the polls for an advisory vote. And I don't really know the history behind that. And I just didn't know if this, with the non-retail marijuana, was something that the town would be expecting the same type of process, or because we do have an election coming up, or if it's just not applicable to do that. And it's just a thought. I don't really have a position one way or the other, but I did want to just bring that up. Thank you.
My only comment on that is that we did inquire with council as to whether there was any legal requirement to go back to the ballot town referendum based upon the previous referendum vote. And town council's response was there's nothing in the cannabis law that requires communities to go back to the ballot box for a referendum.
All right.
So it would just be an optional thing if you chose to do that.
Correct.
Thank you.
All right. Well, we can put the rest of this questions off to the end now. I guess we got an administrative review for 61 Dunstable Road. Christopher Sullivan seeking applicability under the CIOD for the property at 61 Dunstable Road. I see Chris Sullivan's here, and Douglas.
Yes, Mr. Chair and members of the board, good evening. Douglas DeShane representing Christopher and Kelly Sullivan. The Sullivans are the owners of the property at 61 Dunstable Road. In fact, the Sullivans own two adjacent lots on Dunstable Road. And they're shown as lots A and B on the exhibit plan that I've provided. And thank you, whoever's sharing that for me. As you will see, Lot B is entirely within your commercial zoning district, and Lot A is predominantly in your zoning district, except for a small little corner of RB that sort of sneaks in from the side. The Sullivans currently have their two-family home located on Lot B, and they would like to develop Lot A, which is currently vacant. As you know, there are a number of commercial uses that could be constructed on this lot. However, the area surrounding these lots on Dunstable Road is predominantly residential in nature. And in fact, there are a significant number of multifamily structures surrounding these lots. As you move from Lot B, which is a two-family home, towards Vinyl Square, you literally have an adjacent two-family, then a 4, and then another 2, and another 4 before you finally get into the commercial development down in Vinyl Square. Across the street from these lots is also a two-family home, and there are other multifamily and two-family homes in the area, but there are also a number of single-family homes. So the neighborhood is entirely residential in nature. And so the Sullivans would prefer to develop the property as a residential use so that they can keep in conformance with the neighborhood. And quite frankly, they suspect that most of their neighbors would prefer to see a residential use here as opposed to a commercial use. From a zoning perspective, in order to develop the lot for residential use, we must utilize your CEIOD bylaw in order to build a residential structure in a commercial zone. And so we're here this evening seeking a determination of applicability under your CEIOD. I would like to point out a very interesting note to my request, and is that it is the Sullivan's preference and goal to in fact develop a two-family residential structure on this property so that it would be consistent with their two-family and again with the surrounding neighborhood. But as the board knows, your CEIOD requires a 3-unit minimum in order to develop this commercial property for residential purposes. I did want to state that to the extent that, oh, thank you very much for that. To the extent that the board determines that the CEIOD is in fact applicable, we would like to discuss with the board the possibility of looking to see whether or not the planning board, as part of its decision, could in fact either restrict or condition their determination so that only 2 units could be constructed. I've noted in your CEOD bylaw under section 195, 119C5, it expressly states that the planning board may include reasonable conditions as part of its decision. We would certainly find a condition that requires us to only construct 2 units to be very reasonable. And as I said, in fact, in keeping with my client's desires. Additionally, if in fact the board determines that the CEID is applicable, however, cannot find a way to condition it, we would certainly be willing to seek a variance from the Board of Appeals to allow us to build less units. That would be a very unique variance request for me. I don't think in my entire career I've ever gone in for a variance to be allowed to build less units or something smaller. It's usually the opposite. So we do feel that we would have significant neighborhood support in seeking to reduce down to 2 units. And I do believe that we could justify and show that we meet the criteria for a zoning variance to allow us to only build 2 units. But again, I'm hoping the board will at least discuss and consider with me, if they believe that the CEIOD is applicable, whether or not there may be a mechanism to condition your determination to allow us to build only 2 units. They'd really like to build a 2-family house that is consistent with their existing and again, with the neighborhood. So with respect to our the application of the CEIOD, I've reviewed the purpose and intent of your bylaw, and it clearly articulates that it's provided to facilitate the development of vacant and underutilized commercial property. This is clearly both vacant and underutilized, in a manner that increases the tax base and meets the town's design standards, construction standards, and neighborhood character. So clearly, the intent was to be sure that whatever you're doing, it meets neighborhood character. And again, we believe that allowing this to be done residentially certainly is consistent with neighborhood character and would meet all of your design standards. The bylaw also talks about protecting and enhancing real property, providing high quality architecture reflecting community character, site planning in a manner that is compatible and in context with the surrounding neighborhood. So again, I feel we fall squarely within the purpose and intent of the bylaw by doing something that is in fact less intrusive than commercial development and certainly far in keeping with the local neighborhood. I believe that the board could conclude that this is a residential reuse or redevelopment type project, as we are essentially converting existing commercial property into a residential use, which will contribute to the livelihood and economic viability of the surrounding neighborhood. And by that, I mean, clearly, building residential in the residential neighborhood, I believe would, allow for the values of the homes around to be maintained, if not enhanced, by having a nice new 2-family in the neighborhood. It certainly wouldn't impact their values like perhaps a commercial development would. And it's also meant to, provide for economic viability of the surrounding neighborhood. And again, I think what is best for the economic viability and the value of those surrounding homes would be to have another equivalent, home, 2-family, rather than see commercial development here. So I'd ask your board for consideration as to whether or not the Sullivans can in fact move forward under your CEIOD bylaw. I have provided you a 3-unit plan that is in keeping with all of your dimensional requirements, all your setbacks, your landscaping, parking. In other words, this is compliant. It doesn't require any waivers or reductions in any of your dimensional requirements. And so I wanted to show you that a 3-unit could in fact be built here. But most importantly, I'd love to discuss with you, again, if you feel this is applicable, how can we get to 2 units? Thank you.
All right. I will work the way around the board and ask people for, just remember, board members, we are just asking for applicability. It's a long ways from anything else. Mike Raisback, your thoughts, comments?
Well, let's see. This is kind of unique, Doug. You don't see this every day. I like the idea of seeing this property done as a 2-unit development, however that might be done. And obviously this isn't the point to dig into the details. I got to think there's a way we can do that. It's a little on the edge of COID, but I think we can make a fair argument that it falls within COID. So that's my 1.5 cents.
All right, Mike Walsh.
So quick question I have. So I'm looking at the plans, you're not taking down any of the existing homes, right?
No, the only thing that would be raised, you can see that there's currently a small, kind of older single-story garage there that would be taken off of that lot. These lots have actually been created by A&R plans, so they do exist as separate lots. That garage would be raised. Other than that, there's nothing on Lot A right now, and we're not proposing any changes to the existing two-family on Lot B.
So maybe this is for Evan. Evan, on the GIS system, it's considered one big lot. The updated plan that we see here of the two lots is not on the GIS. So which is correct?
Well, if you recall, several months ago, this property was in front of the planning board for an A&R, and that A&R plan was endorsed by the planning board. So it takes some time for the recorded plan at the Registry of Deeds to make its way back to the Chelmsford Assessing Office.
Okay, so it's a separate lot.
Correct. And then from there, it takes some time for the GIS to be updated.
No problems. Sorry, I don't remember them coming in. So, but I have no other questions.
Don,
No questions or concerns.
Tim,
Is this owner occupied at 61 Dunstable? Does he live there?
Yes, his
Develop-
family owns that. They've owned it for about, I think, 18 years.
I think if
There's
we
a
could get it
tenant,
to work.
there's a tenant
Yep.
living in one unit, and I know currently the Sullivan's dad is living in the other unit as well.
Okay. All right, that's all I have. No other questions. I think if we could make it work as two, obviously would be fit in the neighborhood. So I'm good.
Hank,
I think I like it a lot better with the two units. The property to the left of that, that's they own that also. The RB.
To the left, no, that's owned by Edward and Eileen Duffy. That
All right,
property, yeah.
so that's their RB that's jettisoned into your lot A.
Yeah, see the little,
Yeah.
that little corner right there, just that little bit is RB.
All right, but it's not their property. No, I think at this point, I think it's fine. You can, I'd rather see the two units than a three, but if it fits within the COID, I'd be happy with that.
I think I got everybody.
You do not.
Nancy.
Oh, Nancy, I forgot Nancy. All right.
All right, so I took a look at this today and went through all the dimensional tables and the COID and such, and I would say that this does not qualify as CEIOD because CEIOD requires 25 feet side setbacks from adjacent residential. It doesn't require side setbacks from adjacent residential zones. It requires side setbacks of 25 feet from residential uses. Therefore, you're going to need 25-foot setbacks on both sides of it, not just one side of it, which is another argument why a two-family in here would be much better than a three-family. My only question is, do we have the authority to do a waiver to reduce a COID project to a two-family? And I think we should ask council that before we make any finding on this.
Evan, how do you feel about that?
I think that's a good suggestion. My hope and expectation is that we'll be able to work something out. If it's not during applicability, as Attorney Duchesne's mentioned, certainly during the special permit process, the board can apply reasonable conditions. And if we get to that point, it sounds like the applicant is going to be voluntarily submitting that that's the preferred option. So, but I do think for the here and now, I agree with Nancy, just to make sure that we're not going down a path that is a dead end. Let's find out. Let's find out before we make any formal applicability decisions.
I would much rather we found that out now before they make investments in planning, to find out how to do that, and that it be incorporated into the finding of applicability, so that they don't have any questions about it going forward.
All right. Douglas, what I get out of this, and hopefully you do too, is the board is generally for it. See if you can get over the one hurdle, see what the town council says, and we'll go from there.
No, I appreciate the board's consideration, and obviously we want to work with you because I do feel that this is a great way to develop this property for the neighborhood, and we do in fact need a way to get it down to 2 units. As I said, I could go for a variance, which I would probably enjoy, asking for less, but I'd much rather get it accomplished in one fell swoop with the planning board. So sure, we'd ask to be put back on your next available meeting, and we'll come in with town council's response.
Sounds great.
Thank you.
All right. Well, 248 Princeton Street is continued to March 10th.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, are we continued to a particular date?
I was waiting for a continuance vote. I don't know if that's appropriate.
I'll move it.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Mike and Nancy, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Unanimous.
All right, thank you very much.
All right, 248 Princeton is continued. Stonegate, I set off of, so Mike, this is all for you.
Can we get a motion on the continuance for 248 as well, please?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Unanimous.
Aye.
All right, so we'll move over to Stonegate construction, the construction 1 Billerica Road and 44 Central Square, the review and the ratify the decision. I got the late marked up revision this afternoon. To be honest with everybody, I haven't had a chance to dive in through all of the decision, but Evan, do you want to make a presentation first, or do you want me to go around the board, see if there's any comments and how we recommend moving forward with the right decision?
Yeah, so just a couple comments. So it was originally sent out on Friday. If you had opened it and downloaded it, the track change version would have appeared. What I sent out today was a PDF because when I opened it without downloading it, it opened up an entirely different version. So if you had a chance between Friday and tonight to open the original, then what was received via PDF this afternoon is the same. What's in front of you includes used Nancy's edits as a baseline, and then I built off of that, attempting to capture the board's the members who voted against the project, attempted to capture their rationale and justification at a high level. In my email to you on Friday, I also made an editorial comment that some of what Nancy included wasn't necessarily discussed or voted on by the board. So my only word of caution to the board is, I think the record clearly articulates and identifies the primary reasons for denial. The draft decision includes other reasons, but my caution to the board is that some of those were not necessarily discussed or identified as a reason for denial by a majority of the board members. So similar to all decisions, I think our goal is to make sure we write a defensible decision and don't put the board in any precarious position where we don't need to. So that's kind of what my email said to the board on Friday. I think the items that the board needs to key in on as part of your review and ratification is the track changes, which I think are highlighted. So it should be fairly straightforward where the board needs to spend its time this evening.
So Evan, is it typical to have this detailed of, it was just my question on, I don't think I've ever seen a detailed decision like this. And maybe Mike and Nancy can, and the rest of the team can, because you guys have been on the board a lot longer than myself, but I've never seen such a detailed decision that talks about so much in favor of the project. And then at the end, it gets into the decision of the findings at the end, why we didn't. Is that typical that the town has a decision at this length of detail that has what was in favor of the project? Because it doesn't seem like we've captured every single waiver that they asked for and how we went down each single one. And then at the end, it has it just lists one page of why we didn't approve it, but 7 pages are why we should have approved it because it passed. You know, it feels like it met different criterias, and then we get to the end and it just, and is that typical?
Nothing about this is typical.
I'm just trying to,
But
I'm not
I
trying to
would have
cause an
to
argument,
say
I'm just
that
trying to
for
have a discussion.
this complex a project, it is typical to have a very extensive letter of findings. On the other hand, Mike's observation is right that this is a real mixed bag in terms of having a lot of pluses but definite minuses that we couldn't get past. But that said, we really need to be careful how we present all of those pieces. And maybe this isn't doing the greatest job of, I don't know. But I think it's significant that that's what struck you, Mike.
I was just amazed that it was an 11-page decision when I first saw it. And to be honest with the board, I haven't had a chance to go through line by line by line. And I think I would like to see whatever we decide, Evan, as the decision. I mean, we know what the decision is, but have it written here. I would like to have town council review it too as well, prior to being signed.
Well, in as much as you were the chair for this, I don't feel comfortable with voting on this if you haven't had a chance to go through it in detail, because this really is detailed.
I mean, I was surprised by how many crossouts there were done to this. It was the first draft that we saw. So Evan, maybe so the draft we saw on Friday with all the crossouts, was that Nancy's comments?
Keep scrolling down, Colleen, just so I can see where the major crossouts are. I don't see any yet. These are all additions. Mike, you're specifically referring to crossouts, correct?
It's in the findings.
You know, you can start right at the beginning. I mean,
Are you referring specifically to crossouts or added language?
there's both added language
Yes.
and there's, so the first thing we started with here was when you first were sending out the draft decision before the decision was made, it was a decision for the project. So then that's the way I take it. And then the application did not go through, and we took that draft and made revisions to that and took out a lot of items. We should be starting with a clean slate for us to look at without any revisions before that it has the facts in line with the decision that was made at the last meeting. And then that allows us to track changes. from there, if we have changes to that decision. So what I'm looking at, like right here, when you start right here on this page, and I've got another one simultaneously up here. It just, what did you use to start the basis of this decision?
So the basis is exactly as you said, the first draft that you received, while you characterize it as in favor, it was intended to be neutral and articulate the facts and findings as they existed at the time. Then the board voted its denial. Prior to the board voting its denial, Nan submitted a track changed edits. That didn't necessarily, I don't think that got formally in front of the board the evening you voted your denial. This version includes, it started with Nan's track change, and then I added the specificity and appropriate revisions to turn this from a neutral decision to a denial. So I'm not suggesting that a denial needs to be this detailed. I've never written a denial, and the board has never voted and ratified a denial. So I agree. It makes sense to work with counsel and ask his opinion on this. What I will say is, whether it's a denial or approval, you still have to make these findings. Mm-hmm. And in this particular case, there's nothing wrong with some positive findings and some negative findings. And I think that's exactly what the board did, and that's exactly what the public hearing reflects, is that there were 100 items, let's say, that the board was considering simultaneously. And at the end of the day, there were a handful that the board felt did not warrant approval of the project. So that's why the decision is written where there are many findings that are positive, but the ones that were important to the board were negative, and that resulted in a denial. So normally when we write a decision, the facts and findings are important. The board, as some board members know from previous iterations, prior to COID and prior to Center Village, the board would have a project that required 10 special permits. And the board, on occasion, would approve 9 and deny a 10th. And that one denial of one particular special permit would very often make the project not able to move forward. So I don't think there's anything wrong with a decision factually identifying positive facts that relate to positive findings. But it's very clear to anyone who participated in the public hearing what the board's primary concerns were. And I think the board clearly articulated what those primary concerns were. So I think ultimately the goal for the board is to make sure that where the decision identifies and articulates the reasons, the specific reasons that the board used during the public hearing process as its reasons for denial. That's what I attempted to do here.
So Evan, to Mike's point, I really feel that the Conservation Commission letters are their approval and historic, that shouldn't even be in here. This should just be pertaining to what our concerns were and why we voted against it.
That's likely a good example of information that can come out. On the other hand, it's factual. So, again, this format is based upon other formats that we've used, particularly for Gristmill 1. I understand it's a denial, and maybe we want to or need to take a different approach. And Hank, I mean, those are good examples where maybe a denial doesn't need to include some of those facts that normally would be included.
What's the harm in including those facts?
I just think, like Mike said, it's just overkill. It's just like, you get 35 points, and then you get 4 findings that are, you know, we should just address the findings, why we voted against, what was our obstacles to where we got to this point, where they wouldn't raise the height, lower the height, or whatever.
My suggestion, Chairman, is let's ask council, because we could go around and around.
Yeah.
You know, just to Hank's point, I mean, some of the findings speak specifically to environmental impact. So the fact that the Conservation Commission approved the project would likely bear out that the planning board didn't have any specific environmental concerns. So I think we just need to ask council to what detail and to what extent a denial needs to be drafted. If he comes back and says, you know, you can cut a lot of it out, that you can only need to include the specific reasons for your denial, then so be it. Like I said, we just don't have enough experience with this.
Okay, and by all means, I'm not saying that we shouldn't include the information. I mean, there was a lot of information, but this is a lot of information to get done in 7 days of when we're doing this at part-time and we're not attorneys. And that's the only reason I brought that up, was I was very surprised by 11-page decision that basically incorporated 1 year of meetings. And we have to go through our notes to verify that every piece of this is accurate, knowing that this could get appealed in land court. And so if we could have counsel look at it, would be great. And I apologize, I didn't get a chance to do a deep dive on this. I will do a deep dive and go through my notes and get those to you, Evan. And did you get any other comments back from any other board members?
Not since Friday, no.
Okay, so, and are we under a time limit to get this decision rendered back? Even though the decision has been made in writing? Is it?
Yeah, I'm looking for that right now. Yes, the board has, shall issue its decision within 30 days from the close of the hearing.
So
You closed the hearing two weeks ago.
So on that technicality, they were over the 120 days of theirs. So I don't know if they can hold us to that 30 days. I want this done, believe me, but I don't think they should be reading that bylaw.
Yes, it's a good point. So at your last hearing, I did reach out to council. Fortunately, it didn't come up. That 120-day provision due to COVID basically lapsed. It didn't lapse. It was stayed. So under the COVID emergency provisions that the governor issued, as surprising as this sounds, as far as the emergency provisions are concerned, the time clock didn't start until January 1st of this calendar year. So I have that written, documented from council. I also had received a letter of extension from the applicant prior to your last meeting, extending it to the Thursday after your Wednesday meeting. So I didn't bring it up. It wasn't a concern. It wasn't an issue. However, setting that aside, I believe we're currently operating under the 30 days to file the decision. I can also reach out to council and ask him to weigh in on that as well.
Okay, yeah, that'd be great. This hearing opened up in June of 2020 and the public
Correct.
hearing. So that was after the hiatus of.
If it was not COVID, yeah, if it was not COVID, then you're correct. We would have been beyond the 120 days. And like I said, the applicant did submit an extension of time for the board to act prior to the last public hearing, but that was good for 1 day beyond your last meeting.
So we can do this over email, right? Without responding to each other, just respond to you and then you can send out the marked up versions to everybody, because we could probably get this wrapped up by the next meeting, which will be in the 30 days window.
Yeah, as long as someone has counted to verify that the next meeting is within the 30 days, that's fine. I have not done that yet. If it's not, then the board would have to schedule a special meeting.
Is it 30 calendar days or is it 30 work days? Business days?
The bylaw says 30 days. So it's not specific. I think the general state law defines it as calendar days, not business days.
Okay, that's good to know because
So the next meeting should be in 2 weeks. Next week is the first Wednesday of the month. So the 2 weeks from now is the second Wednesday. So we should be within 28 days at our next meeting.
But we have to file it at the court within 30 days, Evan?
No, with the town clerk.
Town clerk, okay.
Yeah, I'm just counting. So you closed the hearing and voted on the 24th. I'm sorry, on the
10th.
On the 10th. So did anyone count?
I did.
From?
I did, Evan. The next meeting will be 14 days and 14 days, so that's 28 days from the 10th. So you're
Okay. So just to recap, I will reach out to counsel, ask him to verify to what extent the decision needs to be detailed. I'll then get back to the board and we'll take it from there.
And we'll get you our comments again.
Well, don't spend too much time, because what if counsel comes back and says the 11 page can go down to 3 pages? So
Well,
give me
you'll
a
have our
date.
notes with those 3 pages. Well,
Okay.
the question is if he comes back and then we send it back out again, we're not gonna have any time to review it.
Yeah, I mean, I'll get a response. I'll get a response by the end of the day tomorrow from
Okay.
counsel.
All right, thank you. And then will you show him this as it's written right now?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Does everyone,
Evan?
anyone on the board have an issue with that? Anyone? Nancy?
No, but I haven't asked for Evan.
Yes.
Fact number 34, can you please fill that in with something that's appropriate?
Okay.
It was a note from me, not a insert.
Okay. I don't know what 34 is, but yes, I will.
It had to do with the current conditions of the Odd Fellows building.
Yeah, something about I used blighted and dilapidated or.
Yeah, but something should be in here that actually documents the facts of it, as opposed to an opinionated description.
I get you. So that's a good example. I don't know if they submitted anything related to the existing condition. I'm positive the board didn't discuss it, even if it was submitted. So that's an example where I would refer to that as Nancy's comments or edits, but one that I'm not sure the public hearing record supports that the board discussed it, and certainly didn't necessarily identify it as a reason to tie it to a denial.
So the applicants made note of it on several occasions in the meetings, but I don't believe that anything was ever submitted in writing to that effect.
Exactly.
That's
Exactly.
right.
So that's why I'm saying while I think the board could have gone down that path if they needed to, it was clear to me that the board didn't need to drill down on that issue because the bylaw provided very clear thresholds that the board, used to justify the denial.
Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe you just want to take 34 out, period.
Okay. Okay, excellent. I will get back to you, if not tomorrow, by Friday.
Hank, do you have any comments?
No, I really can't comment now because like you, I didn't digest the whole thing yet, but it is a lot. So I just got one thing for Evan. Can you ask Paul if we can extend the 30 days? Like maybe there's a loophole that we can, so we don't have to rush everything.
Yeah.
I can ask. I don't believe the board can. I believe an applicant could, but I'm not sure that would be granted in this particular case.
Yeah,
But we-
no, I just want to make sure it's done.
But
for
on
the
that
30.
fact, we did not hold them to the 120 days. And I
That's my
understand, and I think there's a loophole in that
No,
regarding COVID, because we met constantly since June.
I will send you the email exchange that I had with counsel. I outlined the facts to him that the hearing opened in June and the board has met for since June. His response was that the governor's executive orders related to zoning permits, basically the clock, the typical clocks related to time to act were basically stayed and did not begin until January 1st this calendar year.
All right, I'll leave that to the attorneys. I'm not getting it all.
Exactly.
Mike, I'm out of my area of expertise. Mike, you had a comment?
yeah, I'm just gonna say, I think the only time period that we have to work with here is the 30 days.
Okay, yeah,
The
so,
rest of it's out of the way. I do believe that the matter of the condition of the Oddfellows Hall was discussed. I know because I said
Yeah.
something about it. It may not be documented in writing, but that's not a requirement. If we're going to mention it, the fact that it was mentioned verbally is quite adequate.
Yeah, just to close a loop on that, Mike, I'm making a distinction between a board member mentioning it.
Yes.
It's compared to the chair asking for a straw poll and
And-
multiple board members mentioning it.
Right.
If what I'm saying is, I don't think the board's denial needs to rely on individual board members' concerns that weren't necessarily echoed by other members.
Yeah. I think you're absolutely correct.
Evan, I think that's reasonable, but the fact is we did discuss the situation with the state of the Oddfellows because we were concerned over whether they would truly complete the restoration on the Oddfellows because of the extent of the damage and how it would, how the new building would affect that. So we did have discussions. I don't know whether every member contributed to those discussions, but we certainly did have discussions about it.
Yeah, so these are good examples where, again, as Mike Walsh indicated, when we get to the point of submitting your individual comments, if multiple board members are submitting the same comments, well, then it's clear, and we'll add them. I think the conversation was more about how do you guarantee that the Oddfellows gets done. So I never viewed it as whether it could be historically preserved due to its structural integrity. I always viewed the planning board's conversation related to how do we tie the projects together so that we get everything that's being proposed. But at the end of the day, the board didn't need to and ultimately didn't use that as the primary reason for its denial. But it was certainly a concern. It was certainly a concern. But again, it's a question for council, right? If you have 2 or 3 primary reasons for denial, do you need to outline and identify all the other miscellaneous concerns? I don't know, but we'll get that answer from council.
Dawn, do you have any comments?
Strengthen the argument.
Go ahead, Nancy, what?
I said, do the additional concerns strengthen the argument for denying the application?
I don't know. Well, I'll ask council. I think the height and number of floors were specific criteria and provisions in the bylaw. They specifically required a waiver. Unlike the thing about, whether the Oddfellows could have been preserved due to structural integrity, or how do you tie it to an approval. Those weren't specific provisions in the zoning bylaw, and as such, the board didn't need to identify those as reasons for denial. But we'll ask council.
So can I ask a question on when you talk about, I'm still trying to get an understanding of the underlined changes in the track changes. These are just Nancy's changes?
No,
No,
These are your, because there's like, here's a line item now, just one, can I read one? Per section 195, 118B, specific performance standards on under B, enhancements to parking and traffic. It says the project creates a very underlined, limited amount of new underlined traffic during peak traffic times. Who put that in there? I mean, that's just one example that I have.
what page is that?
Mike, you need to look at the Word version that was sent out last Friday to find that out. And
I have
that
that up.
data is
I
embedded
have
in
that
the
up.
file.
What page, Mike?
I'm sorry, it's under page, what the page numbers? Not even page numbers. There's no page numbers on this page. Oh, wait, hold on. On the thing, it's 7 out of 11. So I just want to know, is that's Nancy's comment or is that someone else's comment?
I'm just looking for it.
Yeah, no problem. 190, yeah, there you go. Go down to letter B, second line. Right there, it says the project creates, that looks like someone wrote that whole thing in. It's in a different font. It says
So
the project creates a very limited amount of new traffic during peak traffic times. That's different font than the other ones and it's underlined.
So those are edits submitted by Nancy, correct?
Yeah.
So I believe Nancy's are in purple and mine are in green.
Oh, good. Okay.
Again, so I didn't.
No, I just wanted to, I'm trying to
I
figure out
didn't-
who made what changes.
Yeah,
'cause
I
it
didn't.
doesn't
I didn't.
track.
I didn't debate or rebut or engage with Nancy. I basically accepted them all as input from a board member, and then added mine. So that's a good example where the exercise is part of reviewing and ratifying. Nancy must have felt that that was important enough to add, but there are likely other board members who feel is either that's not an accurate statement or we didn't discuss it. We didn't make any findings. And my recollection was the board didn't spend a lot of time talking about traffic. He didn't get there. He didn't have to get there.
No, I know, but I don't think it was ever discussed that there was no traffic.
No,
added
agreed.
to the project.
Agreed.
And
So that's
this states there's no traffic.
agreed. So, Nim, is that your edit? I believe Nancy's are in purple and mine are in green. If you
Okay.
were to open the Word doc and you were to click on track changes and then like show all or show markup,
Yep.
then you should be able to hover over it and see who added it and when.
Okay. All right, thank you. I don't have anything else for this. I meant to go to Dawn. Dawn, did you have anything?
No. I think the appropriate course of action here is obviously send out the town attorney, let him look at it, and we can come back later if necessary and wordsmith it.
All right, thank you. All right, do we need to take a vote to just continue this or anything? Evan?
No, you're fine.
Okay. All right, thank you. We'll move on to the next. Henry, you come back on?
I'm back on.
All right, thank you.
Do we have anybody in the crowd that want to talk about the town meeting warrants? We kind of skipped over this with Virginia earlier because she had a 9 o'clock.
So
Make sure she had.
I did update the PowerPoint, specifically added a couple slides. One of those specific requests from the last hearing was to do a better presentation of the zoning districts and where they're located in town, so that people could see where geographically these uses were being proposed and or prohibited. So,
That share with us now?
yeah, Colleen, can you bring up the PowerPoint, please? Okay, scroll down to the third slide, please. No, I'm sorry, one up. Yeah, so as the board knows, I normally, between planning board public hearing and town meeting, will add some visual examples. Some people find it easier to understand what we're talking about using some, some Google images. So added this slide. This is a work in progress. First line shows examples of principal fulfillment centers. Again, floor to ceiling racks. The picture on the right shows conversion of existing retail space into fulfillment center, and that's what we were talking about as a concept that may be applicable as a principal use. The second line shows examples of co-located facilities or micro facilities. So you can see the first photo on the left is an example of, let's say, a big box store converting, up to 30% of their existing back of the house operation to a fulfillment center. The other three are an attempt to show how a small, locally owned and operated business, where this would apply. So that middle slide, or the second one from the left, again shows retail in the front of the store, and then employees working in the back of the store to fulfill online orders. Same with the next slide to the right, and the last slide on the right gives an indication as to how these small, locally owned and operated businesses would do the actual delivery if they were not hiring a third-party company to do the deliveries for them. Last line shows some examples of dark stores. The most common dark store in the marketplace right now is grocery stores, supermarkets. So that's fairly straightforward. The second one from the left looks to be a dark store related to a beverage, could be wine and beer. And then the last two slides are, again, most prominent market trend related to what a dark store looks like from the outside. And these are photos of Amazon facilities related to Amazon Fresh. They operate a couple different business models. They operate a hybrid where there's retail as well as fulfillment. And then they operate what you see here, which is a true dark store where there is no public access, and they are making the fulfillments. And in this case, the last slide on the right here, you see that they're not, in this particular case, they're not using Amazon Fresh delivery vans. This is likely a customer who's picking up their delivery at the dark store. Next slide is what I was referring to, showing the townwide zoning map related to e-commerce. So at the top of the slide, we have our two use tables. Dark stores and ghost kitchens are on the left. Those are commercial uses. And on the right is principal and accessory fulfillment centers, and those are industrial uses. So this zoning map highlights the zoning districts using a black outline in which these uses would be permitted either by right or by special permit. The one that I think was most sensitive was principal fulfillment centers in the IA and accessory fulfillment centers in the IA, both of which remain as by right. So this gives you an indication. We do have industrial zoning districts that currently abut residential zones as well as residential uses.
So Evan, I see this is, for a lot of people that look at the map and trying to figure it out, basically 129 Drum Hill area.
Yes.
What's the little
Yeah.
pie shape up on the upper left there?
That is Groton Road, Route 3.
Road 3, yeah.
North side of Route 3. You have the Lighthouse School up in North Chelmsford. You have
Yeah.
that area, Watton Street. And then you have Technology Drive off of Drum Hill.
Yeah.
Yep. And then you have a small piece behind Parkhurst. I think it's Gene Ave.
Yeah.
Right near the landfill.
Yeah. And to the left of that is the
Left of what?
where Colleen's pointing right now.
That is Littleton Road. The green area is CB.
Yep. All right. I just wanted to make sure that people understand out there that are watching what we're talking about, because a lot of times they don't know.
And the pink or purple is CD. That's Chelmsford Street, and then Vinyl Square and the roadways leading into Vinyl Square.
All right. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Anything
Then
else to
if you want to move on to the other zoning map
Sure.
related to marijuana. Okay. You scroll down yet one more. Okay, so this is a same presentation, just related to the cannabis articles, based upon your last public hearing. The board did revise the let's see. I'm trying to CB. Okay, so this reflects the discussion from the last meeting. The board didn't make any changes, and then we have the zoning map as well. So as currently drafted, in the CB and CD zoning districts, all these uses are proposed to require a special permit from the planning board. And then in the IA limited industrial zoning district, they are currently proposed by right, likely triggering site plan approval.
And what did Virginia want us to add to the map here?
So
one of the other.
Do you want Virginia to speak?
Oh, you are there. I didn't see you. Sorry.
No.
Yeah, I'd like to speak.
So actually, I think this chart is not correct.
No.
Because in for non-medical marijuana at your last meeting, Mike brought up that the Vinyl Square Committee had wanted the CD and CV to be all no, and I think the board agreed with that, and Evan agreed to change that. In the warrant that the select board signed on Monday night, the use tables do say no for both CD and CV. There is no special permit in CD. What Virginia brought up earlier was for the e-commerce fulfillment center article, the accessory use for fulfillment centers is different for CD and CV. For Center Village, it's no, and for CD, it's special permit. So that's still inconsistent with how the Vinyl Square Committee's vote went on what they would like to see. But I don't think this chart is correct, Evan, based on the warrant we signed off.
You are correct. My apologies. That's why you saw me stumbling as I was looking at the screen, the seat, and I had my notes marked up from the last meeting.
Right. All of the CDs are in the warrant, which is exactly the outcome that I think the Vinyl Square Committee expected.
Correct.
Joe Tierney joined the call, so he can speak. I don't.
Correct. So at the last meeting, the planning board at Mr. Walsh and the Vinyl Square Committee for CD made that all ends for prohibited. So that is reflected in the warrant that the select board signed on Monday. As I said, I was stumbling, so I knew there was something that wasn't right on this chart. So
Evan,
that
do
accurately,
you have a similar chart for the fulfillment centers with the use table?
yes. Colleen, can you go up 2 slides? So,
Okay, so Henry, in answer to your question, this is what I was talking about on the upper right, where it says fulfillment center accessory use. It
Yep.
has N for CV, but it's special permit for CD. And I believe, I'll let Joe speak, but I believe that the Vinyl Square Committee had requested that both be N.
Yeah, Joe Tierney, 3 Grant Street. I'm the current chair with Vinyl Square, and I appreciate your time here tonight. And sorry for joining later, but I thought this was hashed out because, like Virginia had said, and I believe, and I did watch. I tried to get in last meeting that you had, but I watched it on TV. And Bill Gillette actually spoke as a member of the committee as well. But Evan, we actually, you reviewed this with us, the 2 warrants that were going up for town meeting, and we clearly stated and discussed that on all these articles and these tables on all these items, we want to be treated the same way as Center Village, and that you had even acknowledged that you knew that was to be changed. The very next night, I thought that was just because you weren't able to get to it, but it was clearly to be changed. And that's what we would like to have in Vinyl Square, to be mirroring Center Village, and I thought that was all agreed upon. So I just had to make sure I came in here again, and I just hope that you can still make that change to make sure it's echoing what we want in Vinyl Square. Thank you.
so as I mentioned earlier, the board did not specifically take any definitive straw poll or action that I could decipher to change this. However, I think as we just discussed on the non-medical cannabis, there was a clear discussion and a clear action taken. For the board's knowledge, I think you're aware, now that the warrant has been signed, if you choose to modify the warrant, that is not problematic, in the sense that, as you know and recall, the next step in this process is that the Finance Committee reviews. The board will provide a presentation. At the Finance Committee presentation, the Planning Board can provide any, can do any notations related to any revisions that have been made. And then the finance book will reflect whatever changes the board votes as part of its recommendation. And then the Finance Committee book, as well as the motions that are presented on the PowerPoint presentation at the town meeting floor, is what is voted on. So if the board chooses to make changes this evening or as part of their public hearing, there is a process where we will not need to do this maneuvering on town meeting floor. It will be codified in the finance warrant book.
All right. Does any other board members have anything they want to add to this? Do they want to debate this at all, or do we want to take a vote on it?
Question for Evan.
Sure.
Evan, besides Vinyl Square, what other areas are included in CD? You want to go back to that chart?
Chelmsford Street coming in off of 495 into the center.
Okay, so we would basically be making that identical to the center as well.
Correct.
Okay.
If you recall, when we workshopped this issue, there was discussion, members expressed their opinions and feelings, and it was kind of left to mull it some more and think about it. My thought on this is allowing it in, or prohibiting it in the CD. There's still plenty of other options in town to locate these uses. And while Vinyl Square is zone CD, it's somewhat problematic, but for purposes of locating, and what we're talking about here is the fulfillment centers, in particular the accessory. You know, I don't think it's a major issue as long as people understand that there are businesses along Chelmsford Street and in Vinyl Square that are good candidates
Yeah.
to need or want to be able to do accessory fulfillment. And by prohibiting it, we will not be affording those businesses that opportunity. My final comment is, I think the board, part of getting to this point, they kind of acknowledge or discuss that generally speaking, the business characteristics for those limited businesses that are actually located in the center village are not necessarily the same types of businesses in the CD zoning districts. I think that was likely the original reason why the board landed on the use table the way they did. But, you know, the Vinyl Square Committee has a good sense of North Chelmsford and Vinyl Square. And you know, they've provided their input and feedback into the planning board process.
I would definitely feel if the Vinyl Square Committee doesn't want it, they're the ones that are got their ear to the ground up there, and we should definitely consider what they want. I would ask for other board members. Mike Walsh, how do you feel about this?
I just feel that it's not accurate. What has been submitted is not accurate, and it's unfortunate that we have to go to the extra step now to try to get it changed. And if you take a vote tonight, I don't know if I can vote for it because I don't know if the finance committee will make the change. I think I think the whole process was really fast.
Wow.
And
you're making the change. The planning board's making the change.
Well, yeah, but it's already signed. The warrants are already signed.
Yeah, but your public hearing is still open. So the planning board's making a recommendation. And there's three additional opportunities. The next one is the finance committee recommendations in their warrant book. The second one is the PowerPoint that's presented to town meeting on the floor. And the third opportunity is the planning board submits an amendment on the floor.
Right, but I know, I understand that, but why couldn't we have had this straight going in first so we don't have to make the amendment on the floor? And I know that's probably normal process, but we got the other one straight. We made the other changes. This is my comment. I'd like to hear what the rest of the board wants to think. Everyone hears my opinion. What does the rest of the board think?
All right, Mike Raisback.
Well, I'm kind of with you, Henry. If whatever the folks in Vinyl Square want to do, I think we should listen to. On the other hand, it sounds to me, and I think this was pointed out earlier in the meeting, that what Vinyl Square really wants is a district of their own. That's a different matter that's well outside of this, but probably something that ought to be considered in the longer term. I'm perfectly willing to go with whatever the Vinyl Square Committee says they want. And as Evan points out, that's probably ultimately what's going to get printed unless somebody at FinCom has a really strong opinion about this level of detail, and I suspect that they don't.
Okay, Tim.
I also agree that we should go with what the Vinyl Square Committee wants. They're the representatives from there. But even if the Finance Committee didn't go with it, we could still make an amendment Evan, is what you're saying. So we would have 3 options.
That's correct.
So, you know, it's unfortunate we're here, but we can still make the changes now. I too thought that we did, but it is what it is, and let's just try to move forward. If the finance committee doesn't go with it, then we'll have to do an amendment to make it happen. But I do think we should go with what the representatives from the Vinyl Square Committee would like. Thank you.
Don,
Yeah, it's our article. Procedurally, we can do what we need to do. And Vinyl Square is making a strong argument.
okay, Nancy,
Yeah, question.
I didn't forget you this time.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Can we put a note on CD accessory use not permitted in Vinyl Square and leave it as planning board? Because I'm really hesitant to take it out as accessory use along 110. There are properties there that would be appropriate for it. I mean, there's other places in the use table that.
You're breaking up awful bad on us. Virginia, did you hear what she said?
I'm sorry, I tried going off power and ended up losing you for 5 minutes. So I'm hesitant to try getting closer to modem. Let's see where, hang on. Okay, just a minute.
So this is Nancy's living room.
Okay, so try that again, Henry.
We like the tour of your house.
Yeah, I know. I can't stay off power for very long or I'm going to drop out entirely. So my question was, under a fulfillment center accessory use CD, could we put a note, add a note to the use table that it is not permitted in Vinyl Square? We have notes, other notes in the use tables. I'm just concerned about not permitting it along the 110 corridor between the center and 495 because there are properties there that are currently vacant where it would be an appropriate use.
Virginia, are you around? Can you make a comment on that?
Yeah, I'd like Joe to weigh in. I guess my only thought, Nancy, is when you say Vinyl Square, is that really like the North Village? Because the CD extends down to like where the establishment is, which also abuts residential neighborhoods. So if that exception is in there, is it that whole patch of CD?
Gonna take that dick in my booty hole. I'm gonna ride into my booty hole. Swole. I'm gonna. Compared by my bad booty, say give it a slap. Riding like a horse. They just fuck me till I'm sore. Can't nobody rape my cousin. Can't nobody rape my cousin. Can't rape my cousin. Riding on his dick, making my pelvis. Shitting on his dildo, you can go ahead and smell it. I like sending nudies. You can keep that coochie. Fuck her, then he pooed it. Can't nobody rape my.
Did you get him muted?
Karina, is that someone? EICONNO DEI. What do you think? I'm like a okay.
Yep.
Oh yeah, no problem. I'm sorry. Now let me make sure we're going.
Is Henry back on yet? No.
He's gonna try and sign in right now. Okay, Henry's here.
Right.
Ooh.
Sorry about that. Somebody has a bad sense of humor. All right, Nancy, I think you had something going before we got disturbed, and we're going to try to get Virginia's comments.
Okay, I'm gonna try to do it here from here. I needed to plug back in. So Virginia, to answer your question, can you offer specific wording that would go into that note that would encompass the appropriate portions of the North Village?
Well, I was actually asking if you guys did, because I'm not a zoning expert. And I want to bring Joe into the conversation. I was trying to cover it because I'm their liaison and I happen to be at the meeting. I'm not like on that committee. But I think if you were going to put that caveat so that you were leaving things open for Littleton Road, it would just, I think the committee would want it stated in a way that it covers that whole CD district in North Village. Because sometimes when people hear Vinyl Square, they think of just, you know, the section where Rosie's is, but it really, that the CD district extends down to where the establishment is. So I don't know, Joe, is that representative of what you guys had intended?
So if
Yeah.
it had, so if
I
it
just
had
want
a
to,
note-
I just wanted to add, sorry, go ahead.
So if it,
Let Joe go first.
let Joe go first.
So thank you. I heard the discussion before, you know, all that disturbance, and that's exactly the point I was going to make. We don't just represent just Vinyl Square. We represent the whole North Village area, and that would be the wishes of the whole North Village.
So maybe the wording is North Village.
So if we phrase the exclusion that it is not applicable to the CD district within North Village.
Right. I mean, there's a mapping of the, if that helps, there's a mapping of our Vinyl Square Strategic Action Plan Committee and jurisdiction, if you will, and that encompasses a lot more larger area than, like Virginia says, just the immediate square area. It's the whole north area.
But we're only talking about what's in CD in this instance. So I think if we excluded this, excluded, not applicable to the CD district within North Village, it would thoroughly encompass the area that could have been applied otherwise.
Okay, that sounds good to me.
All right, can I make a motion to the board that we add that note to the use table?
Can I ask you a question, Nancy, before you bring that in motion? Does Village, North Village go all the way down to the establishment?
I haven't.
Yes, it even goes to the dog park. I'm pretty sure of that mapping.
If I may, this, if it's going to be referenced this way in our zoning laws, it has to be crystal clear exactly what space we're talking about. And throwing words around like North Village is probably not accurate enough to make it into our bylaws.
Yeah, I make a suggestion that the footnote be only applicable to the CD zoning district along Chelmsford Street between 495 and Fletcher.
There you go. That'll
There
do
you
it.
go. That works.
Yeah, that works.
Okay, I will just run this by council. I believe we can do this, but we just need to make sure that the wording,
Yeah.
as Mike is suggesting, is clear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
Do you need a vote on us for that?
We should.
that's fine.
I have a motion.
I make a motion that we add a note under fulfillment center accessory use, CD, to make it applicable only to the area along 110 between the center and Fletcher Street.
I'll second.
Between 495.
Center and 495.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay.
I
All right,
appreciate it, folks. Thank you.
you're welcome. Do we have any other comments from the audience on both the fulfillment center? And I see we had somebody there too for the Center Village parking. Is there somebody there that wanted to talk about that? Mike? You're muted. Mike, I never thought it was that easy to mute you. Colleen,
Yes,
can you let Mike in? He's trying to unmute himself. He can't get in.
all I can do is prompt him.
There we go. He's still not.
Nope.
Your speaker's not working.
I think he needs to turn up the volume.
While he's trying to figure out his computer, is anybody else that has got any comments that come in on Colleen?
Deirdre Connell, oh no, no, I don't have anything in the chat.
Okay.
Chris Bowman's here. Maybe she would, I don't know which one she wants to talk about.
Sure.
Chris?
Colleen, there is something in the chat from Mike.
Okay, they voted to support. I see.
Okay. Thank you.
I can share that screen if you want. Thank you, Deirdre.
So is Chris Bowman out there?
Yes, I'm here. I have no comment.
All right. All right, well, that being said, we'll circle back to this next meeting, especially when you get town council's input. When does the EDC, well, the finance committee actually get together?
They've started their, or they will be starting their review tomorrow evening. I think it's, so your next meeting would be March 10th. My thought, talking out loud here, is if it is, for some reason, Finance Committee wants to hear the planning board's presentation before your meeting in March 10th, I think we're far enough along as a board. I think the board is far enough along where you can make the presentation. I will let the chair of the Finance Committee know that you've continued your public hearing to March 10th and that the planning board would prefer it to be after your meeting of March 10th to present to the Finance Committee.
That's fine.
Okay.
Do you have any other comments?
If we need to present to the Finance Committee before March 10th, who's going to cover it?
So what we've normally done in the past is as many planning board members that want to participate, in this case it will be via Zoom, can participate. You know, as I've indicated from the start of this, I'm more than happy to continue to present on behalf of the board. But I always strongly encourage at least one board member or two board members to join me in the presentation at the podium, at Finance Committee, at pre-town meeting, at town meeting, to present. If need be, I can answer, you know, more technical questions. So the PowerPoint kind of evolves each time you see it. I add a little bit more. My hope is that planning board members would put their fingerprints on those, because very often your perspectives or your angles coming from reviewing these issues are slightly different than mine. I try to present the PowerPoint with the anticipation of a town meeting representative trying to understand what we're proposing and why we're proposing. But as some of the more seasoned planning board members know, sometimes I'm not able to hit the mark, or I'm presenting it in a different perspective that's not reaching the audience. So the more eyes, the more involvement we can have from planning board members, the better the presentation will be.
So Evan, that said, how are you going to make sure that we hear what's on the agenda when?
I will email the Finance Committee chair tomorrow, and I will update you accordingly.
Thank you.
Good.
So just, I think last year, I think Mike and Nan joined me.
Yeah, I'll probably be there anyway.
Yep, and I think, you know, I think everybody on the board has something to offer. You know, last meeting, you know, Mike Walsh articulated some of the potential sensitivities related to fulfillment center, traffic, hours of operation. And we discussed that via the special permit, the board can mitigate and condition those types of things. But so that's something that my PowerPoint, you know, doesn't necessarily talk about. So I think each member can provide their own thoughts as to, you know, how the board collectively workshopped this and discussed it and how it evolved and changed based upon board comment and public comment. I'll let the board know. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right. Well, I think we can put that to rest for this evening. Last thing on us, we got new.
We'll just get a motion to continue to March 10th.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none. All right, last thing is new business, and I'm just gonna make it quick. Discuss the workshop to try to help us streamline some of these more difficult meetings. A couple of the high level things that I wanted to run by people is like who does what. Now, I mean, I know we have Evan and Colleen to help us. If we don't reach out to them as much as we probably should, some of these things, it could be helpful to use them a little bit more. But we also need to take and break it up, I think, into groups that some people actually handle certain aspects of it. Like Nancy's always been the landscaping and the yards. You know, somebody else can be more or less on the, you know, looking at the drainage. And, you know, somebody could be historic and around, but we just need to, I think, make a list of what we need to take and kind of concentrate on. And I think we'd be more efficient if we work that way than just bouncing all over the place. The other thing I was thinking of is the payment in lieu of. Not everybody was around when we did the first project behind the brick house. We really made them put together a list of what their benefits were to the town and what we were doing to alleviate some of the payment in lieu of. And then we had the guy come in from 110 and said, just put his hands up in the air, says, I'll pay it all. We just got to, I think we need to have a discussion about it when we get to that point. You know, maybe we put a checklist together. You know, maybe if we get to a point, we say something has, you know, we can't get around this. Maybe we don't go through the whole list of everything. You know, I think we have to take and also get our list of special permits out there. And I think Mike Walsh did an excellent job listing them all in front of us to make sure everybody is aware of them. And that's something we should probably be doing other than the applicant. Also, a couple things I've come up with in the past. History of properties that we have coming up. I see board members trying to go on and research what's in the registry of deeds and everything else. And I'm not quite sure that that's something we should be doing other than maybe tasking somebody to do that. That if there's something listed on the thing, how do we make sure that that's covered? That's just to really highlight some of the things I thought of. I'd love to hear the board members put some of the things on the list that they think we should look at. The idea is to streamline it a little bit so that we don't go, that we can get through to the end of the process. And if a project isn't going to fly, a project isn't going to fly. Nancy, you usually have comments about this type of stuff. I'm sure you've got something to add.
Yeah, I probably do. But remember, I think really slow.
Well, I was gonna say, this is just a high level, just things for people to think for. I'm looking forward to Evan's comments when we finally get to it. This is not going to be a one slam and done meeting. I think we just need to pick at it a little bit and maybe make ourselves a cheat sheet type of thing.
I think there's a whole lot of merit to everything you're saying, Henry. There's one point that I don't particularly agree on, but I think that whole discussion goes into work session to see how other people feel about it in terms of history of properties.
Yeah.
Because it is relevant, and I'm seeing the property history being relevant, not just in the planning board, but in the ZBA applications. And it's because they are relevant.
My thought was more or less on what planning board had ruled in the past and how it got recorded and what's going on.
Yeah, but there's a whole lot in terms of property histories and variances that exist, and the truth is that the records at Town Hall are not easy to get at in terms of consolidating them for a particular property.
Well, that's probably something we're going to have to work on the work session.
Yeah, I think we need to talk about that in some detail at the work session. I'm really liking the idea of both tagging tagging expertises, assigning expertises. And I'm really, really liking the idea of detailing all of the special permit situations up front. Because, I mean, what we saw in this last one was that there were so many of them, trying to juggle them without having a cheat sheet was impossible.
All right, well, that's all I was thinking of. I mean, the
Yeah.
next meeting, at the end of it, we can have a little bit, or if we decide we want to have a special one, we could have a special one sometime. But I think if we just pick at it a little bit at a time,
Yeah.
I think we can work our way through it.
Henry, is this a workshop you're considering possibly after the election? Because you'll probably have some new voices on the planning board.
I think we could probably have it before and after. I think it'll take and go on that long. I'm hoping that if new people that are hoping to get in will be listening and seeing what's going on. And I think we need it. Yeah, I think it would make it a lot easier for new board members too. You know, I think we need the history of people that have been down the road a couple times along with new eyes. I think it would be a good way to handle it.
You know, along that line, I think we also need to put some training together for new members, because it's tough becoming a new member on the planning board. There's just so much to learn.
Yep. Well, I think if we have a work session and some of the board members, the ones that are interested, come in and listen to what's going on, I think it would be a great learning curve for them. But other than that, that's just what I'm thinking on a high level. Anybody welcome to put stuff in. And Mike Raisback, do you have any comments?
No,
We have one about this time of night.
I usually do. I will say that you left out one of my favorites, which is doing some retrospection, looking at what we've done in the past, and we can discuss that. Let's leave that for our
work session. That's why I asked put stuff in.
And which leaves me no alternative but to move to adjourn.
Go for a second.
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I don't see anybody opposed. Good night, everyone.
Good night, all.